Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video. And well, we saw in the Halloween apocalypse on Sunday that the Division, this mysterious organisation, was given a lot more focus than maybe we expected in Series 13. And so I thought it was a good time to just kind of remind us, take us back to Series 12, remind us what we know so far about the Division, where it sits in the Doctor's timeline, what they are all about, who they are, how they work, based on what we know so far. Just so that you can kind of try and be reminded and hopefully have a bit more knowledge going into the rest of the series. We get a first brief mention of the Division in Fugitive of the Judoon, where it appears that the Judoon's sort of contractor who's been in charge of targeting the Doctor and, you know, capturing them and arresting them was actually the Division in some form, some member of the Division or something like that. The implication we get is that Commander Gat, that we meet in this story as well, is also a member of the Division. But what exactly is the Division organisation? So we get a little bit more of an understanding of that in The Timeless Children, when we go through the Doctor's various flashback things, or the Matrix showing the Doctor's past, meeting her past life, understanding how she became, was the Timeless Child, then learn how it became sort of the base of the Time Lord race, and the rise of Gallifrey, and all of this stuff. And as part of those early days of Gallifrey, basically all of what we're going to be talking about today focuses on the pre-Hartnell part of the Doctor's timeline that we don't really know anything about, apart from the Ruth Doctor was one of them, and obviously we saw some of the very beginnings, or a beginnings of it with the Timeless Child, but a lot of it we don't know. But as far as we do know, the Division and all of this sort of stuff is based in that period of time. And so the Division is mentioned, is sort of briefly shown by this woman who has a similar outfit to what we see Commander Gat have in this footage from the Matrix, showing the Doctor and Tecteun in one of their various regenerations in the pre-Hartnell days, and the Doctor sort of having explained to him, as it was then, what this organisation is, or in very, very vague terms, talking about how the Time Lords never interfere with anything, any other peoples or planets, you know, the classic phrase, but that in some situations it is necessary to intervene and do something about it, and that's why the Division has been set up. So it kind of reminds me of the CIA from the classic series, the Celestial Intervention Agency. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, that the Time Lords had, the sort of Time Lord CIA, basically. And it does seem like it's somewhat similar to that, because they talk about how the Division doesn't exist. You know, it's this secretive organisation that nobody actually is meant to know anything about. But it appears it's some sort of organisation that the Time Lord set up to kind of do shady things back in that part of history, of the Doctor's history in that part of the universe, the timelines, because, you know, the fact they don't want anybody to know about it suggests, well, firstly, they're interfering with things they may be certainly not allowed to appear to be interfering with, but also that actually some of the stuff they're doing might be a bit shady. And that's pretty much where Series 12 left us. We knew that this idea of this organisation called the Division existed, that the Doctor had in some way been enlisted onto the Division, kind of, you know, not necessarily by choice, but it looked like by the sort of pressure from Tecteun to join the Division. And then that when we meet the Ruth Doctor, who appears to be, I don't know, it's so hard, this is very much kind of guessing here, this is so hard to judge it, but I feel like the Ruth Doctor is kind of like one of the later pre-Hartnell incarnations of the Doctor, maybe the last one, but certainly one of the later ones, and that she's lived a lot of pre-Hartnell life by that point. And so that's why she's now on the run from the Division. She talks about in Future of the Judoon that she's, you know, in a job that she didn't ask to be in and that she can never leave, essentially, which is presumably working for the Division. And now she's maybe gone rogue. At the point we see in Future of the Judoon, it appears that the Ruth Doctor's gone rogue from the Division and what the Division wanted her to do. And that's why they're chasing her down and trying to capture her and imprison her. Whether that's because, you know, she's tried to expose the Division or go against them or something, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely possible. That's something that could be explored down the line in this series. But as I say, that's pretty much all we get for it in Series 12. The only other mention is within the Brendan scenes we see. Well, the final part of the Brendan scene, when in The Timeless Children we go into the Matrix again and the Doctor's being shown this Brendan footage, and we see that as the character Brendan, who is meant to be the Doctor, the pre-Hartnell Doctor, is getting his mind wiped, which again is meant to, I think, parallel with the final days of the pre-Hartnell Doctor. There's a sort of a little kind of clock that on the back of it says thank you for your services to the Division, where it should, you know, in Brendan's time it should say thank you to the Garda, the sort of Irish police. It actually says to the Division, so that's very much showing the parallels of the Doctor. It seems what that's suggesting is that the Doctor worked for the Division, and then at the end of her time, what we think is pre-Hartnell, is that the Doctor got her mind wiped by the people of the Division. They thank her for her services to the Division, wipe her mind, and then she becomes a child, grows up to be the Hartnell Doctor. That's a bit of what we see in the episode, a bit of theorising, kind of combining the two into what I think is the most coherent story we've got based on what we saw in Series 12. So that, yeah, as I say, that's where it left us at the end of Series 12, the end of the Time as Children. The Division isn't mentioned in Revolution of the Daleks. It isn't really any sort of a factor. But then we turn up with the Halloween apocalypse, the start of Doctor Who Flux, and very, very quickly, almost just about 5 minutes into the episode, we see, well, the scene with Swarm, this character who's been locked up and imprisoned in this sort of, flashy chamber thing. I don't know quite how to describe it, really. And we see these two kind of guards turn up who are going to kind of check that he's still contained in his cell. And we firstly see that the sort of younger woman has a gun which looks very, very similar to the one that Ruth and Commander Gat used in Fugitive of the Judoon, appearing to be a Division weapon or a Gallifreyan weapon of some description from that period of time. And then Swarm, who clearly is, some serious all-knowing being and things, talks about how he mentions to the slightly older one who's on her final tour, she's about to sort of retire from duty, basically, I think. He mentions the Division and sort of, says, you've been working for the Division, or thank you for working for the Division. And that just tells us that actually the Division is going to be picked up again significantly. That these two guards presumably are at least affiliated with, if not working for, the Division. And that Swarm also has a great history with the Division as well. So that all ties into the Division playing a much bigger part in this series, that it's all set pre-Hartnell, that the Swarm as a character knows the Doctor from the pre-Hartnell days, as was also established, I think, in this first episode, and just shows us that actually, maybe even more than we thought, the Division is going to be a big part of this series. Now, we kind of learned two other key pieces of information in relation to the Division that we didn't already know. Firstly, we find out that the Doctor's kind of mission at the moment, that she won't tell Yaz about and is trying to keep it very secretive, is that she is trying to find out everything she can about the Division, trying to meet people who work for the Division, just find out information about that organisation, because she wants to learn more about her past. She wants to learn about, what she did when she was the Doctor she can't remember. Naturally you want to know what happened in your past, especially when, the impression we get from some of it is that the Doctor might have been involved in some not so good shenanigans and stuff that maybe she wouldn't agree with now, certainly. And the Ruth Doctor's, quite different in many ways to the Doctor we see today. And so we learn that that's the sort of mission, the journey that she's on at the moment, of trying to find that out and find out more about her past through that organisation. But then we also meet the character of Carvanista, who is a Lipari, very much a different, nothing to do with the Time Lords or Gallifrey, or seemingly not affiliated at all. And yet we find out that he is an operative for the Division, an agent for the Division. And so that changes the perception of this organisation, I think, because initially it looks like, it's some, slightly shady old Time Lord thing from the past, where Time Lords who need to go and do stuff that's interfering with other planets and interfering with time or history or whatever, but they don't want to know about it, they just go and use the Division. Whereas actually it appears that the Division employs people from other races, like Carvanista, to do things for them, or I guess report on situations for them, or get involved for them. Things like that. It's all quite vague. We haven't exactly had loads of information about it. The Doctor kind of is asking, tell me about the Division. Tell me everything you know about the Division. You're an operative for the Division, and then we get cut off and we learn nothing more. So it's like, it's definitely going to become a big thing. It's definitely going to be explored a lot more in this series. But I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg so far. And so, yeah, that's pretty much at the end of this first episode where we've been left on the Division. We know it's an organisation that is almost certainly pre-Hartnell, that is dodgy, that's not supposed to be known about, that is involved with interfering and doing things with time and history and interfering in stuff that Time Lords aren't supposed to do. We know the Doctor is a significant part of that she ultimately probably wants to escape it when we see her with the Ruth Doctor in Fugitive of the Judoon. We know that the Division employs people who aren't just from Gallifrey, aren't just Time Lords, because Carvanista is one. We know that Swarm has an awareness, a history with the Division as well, so we get the impression that he is somebody again from the pre-Hartnell days, which is also explored at the end of the story when he talks to the Doctor about how he knows lots of their past battles, but she has no clue. So there's so many interesting things, I think, explored in there. That's kind of what we know so far, but how much more are we going to learn? My kind of prediction would be that it's going to become an increasingly substantial part of this series, that the Doctor's going to gradually find out more little hints and bits and bobs about what it was like in the past, what it was like in the pre-Hartnell days, what it was like working for the Division. Maybe we'll get some flashbacks to when the incarnation, maybe the Ruth Doctor will flashback to her being a part of the Division, or meet people who were affected by things the Division did. Maybe could it be something along those lines? And that's kind of how she finds out it, by finding out, oh no, this organisation I apparently used to work for actually did horrible atrocities. And maybe that's the sort of stuff we're going to learn as well. I think there's so much interesting stuff to explore, and I think it's going to become a big part of the series. So yeah, guys, I think that pretty much covers everything we know so far about the Division. If there's anything else I've missed, please do comment down below. And if you have any theories more so about the Division, what you expect to be explored in relation to it later in the series, and just any thoughts or theories you have, I'd love to hear them down in the comments below. But apart from that, that's about it from this video. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for a brand new video. Goodbye.